Today is May 11th, 2017. This is the 653rd regular Arizona Racing Commission meeting held at 1110 West Washington, Suite 250, Phoenix, Arizona 85007. 10 a.m. So if you want to.
I'd like to call to order the 653rd regular Arizona Racing Commission meeting. Madam Secretary.
Commissioner Garay, absent. Commissioner Heupel.
Here.
Commissioner Lawless.
Here.
Commissioner McClintock.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay. New business item B, we're going to skip. Camilla couldn't make it today, but and we'll move right into new business item C, and that's the appeal of the director's order. Appellant Armando Castellanos Loza, 17A-008-DOR. Are the parties present?
Good morning, Commissioner Ivy Kushner, on behalf of the appellant, who is present as well.
Okay.
Present for the state.
The Commission will now hear oral argument from the parties on the director's order. Please understand that this is not the time for you to re-argue your case. Please focus on the sanction and any errors you believe are contained in the decision. Each party will have a total of 7 minutes. Since the appellant has the burden of proof in this matter, they shall go first. The Commission will then hear from the state. The appellant will then be given time for a brief rebuttal.
Good morning. My name is Ivy Kushner. I'm counsel for appellant Armando Castellanos, who is present here today. As stated in the notice of appeal and at the hearing before the director, there is no dispute that Mr. Castellanos signed a consent agreement, and there is no dispute that he subsequently had 2 horses in the same race that tested positive for a therapeutic class 4 medication. And there's no dispute that the consent agreement placed him on probation. What we're here to ask you to do is to modify the order of the director as being legally flawed and an excessive punishment. I will begin by addressing the state's legal error, or should I say errors. The director's order admits that the stewards overstepped their authority in revoking Mr. Castellanos' license at the steward's level, but then the discussion ends there. Mr. Castellanos' license was suspended on January 11th, 2017, admittedly unlawfully. And I misspoke when I said suspended. The stewards revoked his license. We acknowledge the stewards have the authority to suspend a licensee, but the findings of fact and order of Director Castellanos unequivocally stated the stewards did not have the authority to revoke his license. When the state errs, it shouldn't just go, oops, or, the phrase, take a mulligan, and then just plow forward as if it never happened, if not arguably a basis for dismissal. Most certainly, this wrongful deprivation of Mr. Castellanos' livelihood should be a substantial mitigating factor. Now, frankly, Ms. Ray, the Assistant AG, surprisingly suggests in the memo she filed a few days ago that the fact that Mr. Castellanos was ruled off following the January 11th, 2017 stewards hearing is a, quote, no harm, no foul, because he subsequently had a de novo hearing before the director in March. I can't speak certainly for Ms. Ray, but I would certainly hope that this commission would agree that an unauthorized, illegitimate deprivation of a person's livelihood is not something that this commission should nonchalantly or cavalierly overlook. But the process gets worse. Although approximately 2 months elapsed between the steward's hearing and the director's hearing, 2 business days before the March 10th, 2017 hearing, the state filed a motion to dismiss. Obviously, I had to scurry, and Mr. Castellanos had to incur additional attorney's fees to respond to what I will say, with all due respect, was a groundless motion, ultimately denied by the director. But wait, there's more. After the April 11th, 2017 order of the director, I sought to confirm with the department that the director's order wasn't effective immediately. I did so initially by email with the department so that there would be no confusion if when Mr. Castellanos showed up on the racetrack grounds. I was advised, and I appreciate that Ms. Goodwin and the director did informally respond to my email. The director indicated that he believed it was effective immediately. I then filed a motion for clarification, which was denied. So Mr. Castellanos not only was suspended wrongfully during the revocation following the stewards until the director granted a stay, but has now been suspended, revoked since April 11th. ARS Section 41-1062B states, except when good cause exists otherwise, the agency shall provide an opportunity for a rehearing or review of the decision of an agency before such decision becomes final. Such rehearing or review shall be governed by agency rule drawn as closely as practicable from Rule 59, Arizona Rules of Civil Procedure relating to a new trial in Superior Court. In my motion, I urged that there were no specific grounds in the director's order as to why the order needed to be effective immediately. So Mr. Castellanos, he's a quarter horse trainer. This legal error resulted in his loss of the opportunity to run on April 30th, 2017 in what are the premier highest purse quarter horse races of the entire racing meet. People like Mr. Castellanos, they wait all year to get horses ready to run, and I'm sure you're familiar with all the name races like the Desert Classic Futurity, the Bank of America Championship, and the John Deere Juvenile Challenge. Mr. Castellanos.
I'm sorry. Her 7 minutes is expired now. How do you want to proceed?
Wrap it up briefly.
Okay. Basically, as I've spoken about the law on the issue of the facts. I'm asking that the commission not lose sight of the fact that the medication in issues are Class 4 violations. I'm not suggesting any violation, no matter what the class is something that should be tolerated. But he was sanctioned for 2 violations in the same race, and as you probably know, the ARCI guidelines give discretion when someone doesn't have notice of the existence of a problem to treat it as a single medication violation. the final thing I would want to say is, in her memorandum, Ms. Ray presented to you the disciplinary record of Mr. Castellanos, which was not an exhibit at the director's hearing. So you cannot and should not, in today's proceeding, consider any past record, because you're here not as a de novo hearing, but solely based upon the record before the department.
Right, thank you. Right.
Commission. For the record, I'm Dean Ray for the state. And generally, I would say that I would like to rely on my memorandum, but I will respond to some of the things that Ms. Ivy Kushner has mentioned. She says that she makes much of the fact that the stewards revoked Mr. Castellanos' license when they didn't have authority to do that. And clearly they had authority to suspend the license, and that's essentially what ultimately happened, because the director issued a stay, and the stay stopped that revocation. So he had, I think, approximately, if I remember correctly, 11 days of no license. And then the case law does basically support the position that in a steward's hearing, when they make a mistake, the state can say oops and move on, because the due process is protected by the fact that there's another de novo hearing, and there's, in this case, a second rehearing, which you are capable of doing, and you're capable of doing it in any way that you want. You can reopen it, you can do it as a de novo hearing, you can do it as a review. Under the rules, as I cited in my memorandum, you have the power to do what you need to do to make the decision. And you have the power to look at anyone's record as the regulating authority, whether or not it was part of the record in the original hearing. In this case, the deprivation was minimal. It was cured by the de novo hearing. And I submit that it really is a red herring in this case, and something that is meant to distract you from the fact that Mr. Castellanos-Losa had multiple violations. Whether you look at the ARCI record or not, you know that from looking at the settlement agreement, which was part of the record. He had multiple violations that are similar to this. And so I would say that those multiple violations also go towards whether or not he had notice that he needed to not do these things. And I think it's entirely appropriate to treat this case as two separate cases instead of one under the ARCI guidelines, which, by the way, are not our rules. I mean, you can look at them, but they're not our rules, so they don't really govern. The statute that was cited by Ms. Kushner regarding having a rehearing or review before a decision becomes final really has to do with, and I think I addressed this pretty completely in my memorandum, really has to do with whether or not there's final means it can go to court. So we are not there yet. It's still not final. He's had 2 levels of rehearing and review so far, from the stewards to the director and from the director to you. Once you make your decision, it becomes final. But there's nothing in that statute that says that imposition of punishment must be held in abeyance until it's final. There's nothing in there that says that. I want to just say the motion to dismiss was actually a motion made in the alternative. It was the motion to dismiss and or clarify. And the reason that motion was made was because Ms. Kushner's original notice of appeal indicated that it was broad enough that it indicated that she was maybe going to fight the original violations, drug violations, which had already been adjudicated and the appeal period had passed. So my purpose in filing that motion was to clarify, look, we're only really dealing with the one thing here, which is the punishment for violating your settlement agreement. And that's what I was trying to accomplish with that motion. So it's really misleading to say it was a motion to dismiss, because really it was more directed at, let's clarify that we're only dealing with this one thing, which is the punishment, and not whether or not he committed these 2 last drug violations. And so that's really all I have to say, unless you have questions for me.
I don't know.
Go ahead. What would the difference have been if the stewards used the term suspension versus revocation over that same period?
She
Would
wouldn't
he have
have-
been able to race under a suspension?
No, you would not.
So there really isn't much of a difference.
Kind of like I said, it's like an issue without substance. So,
Okay.
did you have a question, sir?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Having reviewed the director's order in the case, the administrative record, and the arguments from the parties, the commission will now discuss its decision. No further comment
Chair,
from
excuse me, before you go ahead, I think she has the right to
Oh, okay.
have a
Cassie, I thought that was in her
Assuming
7
if she had
minutes.
over 7 minutes, or under 7 minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't
Yeah.
need to overstep my
appreciate
bounds.
that. Unless the commissioners
Is there any reason we
want to
can't
give me a minute or
give her a
so.
minute?
We will.
If you want a minute or
I do,
two,
quick minute,
I-
yeah.
I do, and I appreciate the courtesy.
I will allow 2 minutes on this then?
that'd be great.
Okay.
First issue, at the time of the director's hearing, the stay issued by Director Casillas was in effect. If his decision is not final per the statute that I read, then the stay should have remained in effect. I raised a number of legal issues, probably most importantly, the applicability of the statute I read, and to the extent you feel, communication with your counsel would assist in understanding that there's been some wrongdoing on the part of the state. And when the state errs, many times dismissal is the appropriate remedy. In this case, we went before the director and we said, we're not asking that you just leave him on probation. He was on probation, there were these violations, a sanction is appropriate, and we recommended a 30-day suspension. And in response to your question, Commissioner Heupel, to Ms. Ray, if the directive is on its face without authority, he shouldn't have been off the racetrack, period. So it's not a no harm, no foul, and for the reasons I've stated, there have been multiple ones. So we're here today saying the last 30 days, the term following the unauthorized revocation, he's already been suspended close to 45 days from our viewpoint in an unauthorized fashion. So to now suspend him or uphold the director's decision when you have no information relating to any past
Thank you.
okay, thank you. Appreciate the courtesy, thank you.
You bet. Having reviewed the director's order in the case, the administrative record, and the arguments from the parties, the commission will now discuss its decision. No further comment from the parties will be heard while the commission deliberates.
Well, I mean, I think it's pretty clear that he was on probation under a settlement agreement and violated that agreement again. I think it's clear cut, as far as I'm concerned, to affirm the director's decision.
Well, I've been on the commission long enough, unfortunately, that I've seen Mr. Castellanos before, and I agree with Commissioner Heupel. I think a strong message needs to be sent to the racing community that we're not going to tolerate trying to give your horses illegal substances to make them run better. And so I would, unless somebody has any other questions or things to say, I'd make a motion.
Any other comments? The final issue for discussion is the commission's order. The commission may make a motion to accept the director's order or may modify or reject it and substitute a different decision. Now is the time for the commission to make a motion and deliberate.
Okay, I move that we deny the appeal and affirm the director's decision.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Madam Secretary?
Commissioner Lawless,
Aye.
Commissioner Heupel,
Aye.
Commissioner McClintock.
Aye.
Motion carries.
This concludes this matter before the commission. The commission's decision will be reduced to writing and sent out to the parties shortly. The parties' further appeal rights will be set forth in the commission's written order. Thank you all for attending today. Okay, next item on the agenda is information reports, turf safety report. Greg?
Scott Waterman's in New Mexico today, so I'm giving the safety report. I don't know if any of you guys have been landlords at all, but I've been in the past, and I've had renters. And they're good, but when they move out, you discover what happens to your home. You either have minor repairs that you need to do, and sometimes you have major repairs. As the season ends, I think Turf Paradise is kind of in that realm, that they've been a landlord to 2,200 horsemen, roughly, 2,000 horsemen. And all season long, they have been very responsive to our department in repairing the things that need to be repaired, fixing some of the things that needed immediate attention. They've been right on top of things. And then some of the things that we have asked to be repaired, they have indicated that once the horsemen leave, they would get to them. As I was thinking today, I was remembering a former commissioner that was here, Bill Feldmeyer. And despite his quirks and his oddities, and coming to the commission meetings looking like he just got off Camelback Mountain, he did bring up some good points. And one of the frustrations I think that he had was it seemed to be that in terms of major repairs or things that needed to be done, it was quoted by the committee that they would get to them as soon as the horsemen leave, and then for some reason, one way or the other, either a patch was made or the repair didn't get done, and we went into the season and the horsemen come back. There are potholes out there, and there are things that need to be patched, but there's a couple things that are major. And one of the major things that Vince is aware of and he's committed to repairing is the Racing Secretary's office and the office that we have. I think we discussed that there's some leakage in the roof and things of that nature. There were times that our staff needed to put covers on our computers because it was leaking. They've addressed those, and they have indicated that over the summer they would be taking care of those. Test barn as well. There's some things at the test barn that need to be taken care of. There was some leakage out there as well. So what I'm committed to doing is in the next 30 days is to go out and looking at the track, seeing the things that need to be repaired with the permittee, and coming up with kind of a game plan for the summer. That we'll sit down with the permittee, we'll get a schedule of repairs, and then even though that you guys do not meet throughout the summer, is to update you. Whether you're in your cabin at Pine Top, Del Mar, wherever you are, I'll send reports on and how well those repairs, both minor and major, are being done. Just a visual inspection. Again, there's potholes out there. There's weeds that I'm sure will get taken care of. There's some fencing issues. I was out at the L Barn the other day on the Quarter Horse Stakes races. There's some things in there. But I'll go through the barns, go through the property with the permittee, with the horsemen if they wish to, and we'll identify those things that need to be done over the summer with hopefully a schedule of repairs that I can come back to you all throughout the summer and say they're being completed, and they're being completed to the satisfaction of everybody.
That's great. Thanks, Greg. Budget update, Director.
Yes, thank you. Most of you are aware that recently the legislature just passed the state's budget. Along with that budget, there was a couple areas that affect the racing division, and they made some changes to appropriation, RWA, and I have asked Aidan Fleming to come up and provide an update on that, and then after that I'm going to have Lori Anderson give a financial update. So Aidan, if you would, please.
Good morning. Sorry, I'm a little under the weather.
Oh, no problems. So could you state your name for the record?
Sure, Aiden Fleming. There were 3 areas to update. One was $1 million reduction in appropriation. No, excuse me, I am under the weather. The second one was a $250,000 Breeders' Award update, and the third one was a reduction in the RWA that was mentioned, 2.5. Total, that was about a 50% reduction. Overall, about $2 million. So added together, I think we have until, I want to say, February is some of the financial and budgetary estimations that we've done. So that was extremely significant to the department. Totaled all together. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. I apologize.
We'll let you go home.
Yeah. That's okay. I'm sorry. I was in bed for about 20 straight hours yesterday. But essentially, the $1 million reduction in appropriation goes from $2.8 million down to $1.8 million, and that's essentially our credit card limit. Is kind of how I see it. The top end has kind of been taken out. So we ran at about 2.5 million last year. So that is significantly under. The Breeders' Award is important. While we requested it in the budget, the Breeders' Award is an important reduction because instead of coming from the general fund, it is actually coming from the Racing Regulatory Fund. So that actually takes a hit to that credit card limit again. So instead of 1.8 million, we're really at about 1.55. So that is significant coming from the racing division. The reduction in the RWA at 0.8, I believe we just had a change in that, but the reduction to 0.5 in real numbers comes to about $800,000. So taken all into account, with the Breeders' Awards, which we're in favor of in our own budget. However, not coming out of our side of it, that hits, and I think we have an operating budget for pay at like 1.6 million. So essentially, we have a structural deficit. There is no way, from my estimation, that we can actually get through the rest of the fiscal year, and that has been discussed with the ninth floor. So they're aware of it, and I think that the department is taking steps to come up with a plan to reduce costs in any way possible. But those 3 things, any individual one, I think the department could have taken on. However, all 3 at the same time is making it a very difficult kind of mountain to climb. So I hope I give you a little more info.
That's great.
Yeah, was there any explanation
Excuse
for
me.
why they cut the budget $1 million?
Well, the top end, came to a surprise to the department. We have been in communication with the governor's office throughout the session, obviously, about costs. They were interested in our personnel. I think there was some miscommunication about the size of our personnel, about how many people we had to track, how many people we had working. Is there any savings to be done over the summer months when they're not running? So we responded to all of their questions, but when it came into the department as a huge surprise when we lost about, like I said, 50% of our operations essentially in one fell swoop. That is severe, and we have been in communication, but it came to us as a surprise. Yeah, absolutely.
Any other questions? Thanks a bunch.
Thank
Hope
you.
you feel better.
Back to bed for me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have Lori Anderson here.
Okay.
Our controller.
He spoke on all my points. So unless you have specific ones, I don't really have any new information other than we are looking at absolutely every way that we can cut costs above and beyond looking seasonal, non-seasonal, just everything that we can think of. But we do not have a plan right now, but we will keep you updated as soon as we have an idea of how we can proceed.
What is the end of our fiscal year?
June 30th.
June?
Fiscal year starts July 1st. So through this fiscal year, we're fine.
Yeah.
There's
Next
no
year.
issues. It's next year.
Okay. Thank you.
Good luck.
Yeah. Okay, permittee reports not to exceed 3 minutes. American Greyhound Racing.
Nothing to report this month.
County fairs. Rito. And as a side comment, you guys weren't here last month, but Commissioner McClintock and I went down to Rito on a Friday afternoon, and we appreciate the hospitality. I was shocked at the crowd and the enthusiasm, and you guys have it going Gussie, so thank you again.
Yeah, I just hope Mike followed through on what he saw in the Florida Derby.
Always dreaming, right?
Yeah.
That's what I thought I didn't follow through on it Saturday. Well, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I'm Mike Weiss, General Manager of Rito. I'm glad to be back in town for a short time, and sorry I've missed the last couple of meetings to give you a little bit of an update. But considering the shortness of the meet, we had a couple weekends we had a weekend with some bad weather and a couple Fridays where we did a little test. I was really pleased with the outcome. Our handle was held strong. Our attendance held strong. We did focus this year on export for the first time, where we really put a focus on it. And considering we were up in the market against the likes of Gulfstream and such, it was more of a test. But we increased another $750,000 in handle on the export, which makes me see some paths for the future. I actually got a letter from the county thanking me or praising us for the exposure that we gave to Pima County with our export and how it was going out around the world, and with the video, and people could see sunny Tucson while they're in the mountains while they're sitting there all holed up in the snow. The one part that I keep bringing up when I'm here is that I'm proud of the success that we've had with the racetrack industry program. What I found this year is it expanded past the racetrack industry program. We ended up with photography students and journalism students and agriculture students and animal science students coming over to do reports on us. So we've really made this a working lab with the school. The Pollock Report, which is our industry newsletter, had 13 articles of which they were highlighting and profiling students. And since then, New York has reached out to me, and they have hired one full-time student, in addition to 2 that had graduated last year, and they're taking 2 more as an intern. Monmouth Park hired a full-time student. Another student's going to Hoosier full-time. 2 other students have been reached out to through some advanced deposit wagering companies that they're entertaining offers from. Alexa, who wrote all the articles, one of our students, is hired by the New York Jockey Club. So she's going to be right in the heart of everything. And then we have another intern over at Lone Star. So that makes me feel sort of successful until the other day I received a letter from Breeders' Cup, which really made me step back, praising us about the program and what they've seen about the students. And I have a call with them next week because they'd like to place students as interns or for the week of Breeders' Cup in California and see what experience they can get these students. And this is the World Breeders' Cup. That was a nice surprise of a letter and a huge feel good, I guess would be the right word. So again, we're looking toward the future. We're waiting on some news on the grant, but everything seemed very positive with the meeting.
Great. Is there any chance of you guys that you might be able to run in front of Turf Paradise, September and October? Is there
this season?
Well,
I think the long-term goal would be great. I would love to not be running at the same time. I think that's a hardship for both of us when you're working with the horses and horsemen, and even for employees and stuff like that. It'd be great to be able to have a little bit of a circuit going. So that's definitely something to entertain once we get our footing a little stronger.
Yeah, I'd love to see you guys run more days. I mean, we were, I don't know, it was beyond my wildest dreams.
You were there on a Friday, which
I know, and that wasn't a good
you're
day.
amazed at the crowd, and we're disappointed at the crowd
Yeah.
that day. I mean, I have to say, we finished up on a strong note. We had close to 6,000 people on that last Sunday. I mean,
Wow.
Even me coming from everywhere I've been, you just don't get the feeling at very few places that you get at this track. Just the crowd and the enthusiasm and excitement. And we did very little marketing for the Derby party, and we were packed. So
That's great.
That's great. Well, thank you, Mike. Keep up the good work down there, you guys.
thank you.
Turf Paradise. I don't see anybody. Oh, there's Vince. You were hiding behind the podium.
I was doing my best. Vincent Francia, General Manager of Turf Paradise. Before I get into the end of the meet report to the Director and to the Commission, I wanted to address Mr. Stiles' safety concerns. They are ongoing. We do respond as quickly as possible to any matter that the department said needs to be taken care of. In regards to the A-Door Racing Complex, there were 6 areas within the structure that we identified where water was leaking in, and that's not a good working environment. Further investigation identified for us that the problem is the number of tiles are broken on the roof, and that's what precipitated the precipitation coming into the offices. We literally are going to have to take the roof off, and I had mentioned to Mr. Stiles we will do that during the summer. Capital improvement projects are something that when the meet is over, I present to track owner Jerry Sims. We spent in the hundreds of thousands of dollars in capital improvement, one of which is going to be the A-Door building. To the potholes, this is going to be ongoing. When you have 2,000 horses on the grounds and each horse has 4 feet and each horse is going over the roadway daily, it's going to create a problem. So we're constantly doing potholes and spending a lot of money on asphalt. What we are going to look at this year was an idea that came up in a discussion with HPPA management. We're going to see if we can put bridle paths, what would essentially be bridle paths, alongside the roadway. We have to keep the asphalt because the vans come in with the horses, but we're going to see if we can put bridle paths on both sides of the roadway and let the horses use that going back and forth to the track, thereby saving wear and tear on the asphalt and less potholes. I don't know if it can be done, but we're certainly going to try to do it. Another thing we're going to do is the last section of water repairs will be done to the backside this year, finishing a 3-year project. Another expensive capital improvement project is going to be the timing system on the dirt and turf course. What we have is an interesting situation, and we've been dealing with it for years. We get a coyote population, and we don't mind the coyotes because they keep the gophers down. But what happens is during workouts, the coyotes come out and basically relax on the track in the morning. This is not welcome by the horses, so we have to call a firm in and remove the coyotes, thereby upsetting the balance of nature because the gopher population grows. And what do? They eat the wires on the timing system. So the entire timing system is going to have to be replaced this summer.
See what you guys have to look forward to.
Turf Paradise concluded its 61st season on the weekend of May 6th and 7th. May 6th, of course, was the Derby, and it, as it usually produces a very good day for Turf Paradise, it did. All the vitals were up, every area that we measure, from attendance to handle, everything was up. A total of $4 million was bet in state on Kentucky Derby Day, and that's up 6% from previous year. $2 million alone was bet on the Kentucky Derby. That's how popular a race it is here in Arizona. And attendance-wise, we had about 9,000 on track. And when you add the on-track and off-track, it was attendance of 21,000, over 21,000. So that's a healthy day at the races for us. Looking at the meet, which came to a conclusion on May the 7th, when you take everything out, all sources of handle in, we were down 8% from previous year. 235 million is what we ended up with. The primary reason is not because the market was unhealthy. The primary reason we were down is because we raced 10 less days, a combination of 6 less days from the previous meet and 4 days we had to cancel this year. Had we raced those 10 days, our numbers, we would be in the positive and not the negative. For the next meet, we met with HBPA management. We're going to run 133 days. We will open on October 14th. And
Versus how many this year does?
versus 126.
Okay.
We scheduled 130, but we raced 126, so
Gotcha.
we're racing more days. We will start off with a 3-day weekend, then go to 2 weekends of 4, and then immediately into the 5-day schedule.
Okay.
Yeah. The other thing of positive note, the ADW handle continues to grow. It was up 12% over last year. I still continue to have mixed feelings about this, but at the same time, the mixed feelings are based on its cutting into the off-track betting. But at the same time, I'm very realistic that that is the future. That is how business is being conducted all over the world, and
Is that the phone?
racing is no exception.
Right.
What would be helpful, and we understand the sensitivity, but what would be helpful to make it more friendly, as it is with every other business, is the use of a phone app. But currently, that's not allowed. You have to call and speak to an operator. So the ADW wagering was up 12%.
How about the off-track handle? Is it up or down?
The off-track, live was down 12%, and simulcast-wise, we were off 6% just off-track. But again, these numbers, these minuses are primarily the factor of not doing those 10 days, losing 4 and less 6 from the previous race.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, Vince.
You bet.
Tucson Greyhound Park. Okay, the Optional Industry Stakeholder Association updates, not to exceed 3 minutes. Arizona County Racing Association. Arizona Greyhound Association. Arizona Quarter Horse Racing Association. Arizona Thoroughbred Breeders Association. HBPA. Finally got somebody.
I'd feel remiss if I didn't say something.
There's the guy that took home all the trophies on this weekend.
There you go. Had a good meet. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Mr. Casillas, I'm Lloyd Yotha with the HBPA. Just a couple of brief comments to add to what these guys are saying. And Mr. Stiles, I would like to, or someone from the HBPA would like to be on that committee on the repairs for the summer. One thing I'd like to make sure that we also include the barns. I'm not sure if you mentioned the barns themselves, but there's a few barns that need some help. And as Vince was saying about the bridle paths, I think that'll help our horse situation with the problem with the driveways and whatnot, with the gravel and the deteriorating asphalt and whatnot. So those things, if we can get that put together, I think would be a great help. Like I say, just general comment stuff. I don't really have anything else other than we did have a good meet at the track. We had a lot of horse population this year due to a lot of things, but it was hopefully that it's becoming a better place to come race. and we look for an increase maybe next year. Our horse population was great this year, and we're looking forward to next year. So,
How many horses is the max that we can have at Turf Paradise?
about 2,000.
So we had pretty much the...
Well, we were in 1,800 at our peak. Starts out slow because of the other tracks, as you know, or when they close and the situation, and that also is the reason for the three-day race meet to start, and then we go to 4 days for 2 weeks, and then we start building. And then around the end of the year, first part of the new year, we were up to 1,800 horses, and then April they start pulling out and whatnot, depending on what's available for them here to race. But we had a good horse population this year, and the legislation that we got done this year with the extra money for the breed program was very significant, and it'll help us going forward. The unfortunate part, as I explained to you before, it takes about 3 years for that to become effective. So we have to continue the next 3 years, because if you're breeding a horse today, next year you get the foal, the next year you start training, the next year you go to the track. So it's a process. But other than that, overall, I think we had a great meet. I will add one thing. We had one of our long-term horsemen at Turf Paradise got killed yesterday on his way to Albuquerque in a driving rainstorm, I guess it was, a thunderstorm. Bill Parker was pulling horses over there, and they lost one horse in Bill, so we'd like to say a few prayers for he and his family. So other than that, that's about all I got, unless you got any questions.
No, thanks, Lloyd.
Okay, thank you, guys.
J Corp update on Yavapai Downs. We get you twice, Tom?
Hopefully more, from my point of view. Tom Author, J Corp Partners. First, I need to apologize. When I left the house this morning, my wife said, "You're going to that in front of that august Lord with that shirt."
I like that.
But it did give me the opportunity to use my favorite Lou Holtz line, which was when he was at the beach with his wife, and she commented on his skinny legs. He said, "Well, it's flaws like that that prevented me from getting a better wife." I then fled the premises.
Hope the locks aren't changed.
At any rate, we're still pulling together all our information. We've hired CBRE to assessment consulting services to go all through the property, and we should have that number in a couple of weeks probably. So they're not addressing the track and the barns. That's our horse guy, but this is something we can do, so they're going to get in there.
And physical structure.
That's right. So they're going to go through we're going to put a new roof on. We're definitely going to do that. The electrical, one of the comments we had from our horse people is that the barns don't have enough power. Ideally, it'd be 400 amps per 20 stall barn. So we're going to look at that. We'll have at least a couple hundred amps. So we want to do it right. If we proceed forward, that's what we want to. We really want to make sure we do this thing right. Right now, the people that have agreed, subject to buying the property, to throw in with us is a fellow by the name of Corey Johnson. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him. He owns Kentucky Downs and has been a 40-year horseman. I think he's a real innovative guy. I think he's very well known in the industry. Lloyd may or may not know him. He's, I think they have the highest daily purses of any. I think it's $1.5 million a day. That's a short race. He's come up with some real innovative ways to raise purses. But anyway, he's been on the track a couple times with us. We first met with him a couple years ago when we started this process. And that's really the reason that we've kind of decided to get into this, is because we've got so much confidence in him. And the person who it looks like would perhaps manage the track if we go forward is a gal by the name of Ann McGovern, who managed, I think, Remington, Lone Star, Riodoso, Sam Houston. So lots of experience and really good people. So we would not get into it unless we had that quality, because we clearly aren't the people to run it. So we think that's good news. We need to, and Greg's been instrumental in helping us, we need to figure out this OTB situation, because I think everybody here realizes that without adequate OTB days, this track's going nowhere now or ever. So we need to get that straightened out. We're trying to figure out, it is pretty confusing. It's real confusing, what all these different acronyms. But we've had also some very substantive conversations with a ADW outfit and I get them mixed up, telecasting, simulcasting. It may even be, as he said, a distinction without a difference. But so all that stuff seems to be tracking. We just need to make sure we can get that adequate. And we'll, next month we hope to have something for you on that. We'll be reaching out to the horsemen for the next 30 days or so. I think Corey will be back in town. We want to make sure that they're on board with us and that they've got confidence that if we do go forward, we're going to have the money. People aren't going to be left high and dry up there, and that it'll be an ongoing enterprise that hopefully raise purses and improve everything relative to horse racing in the state. So,
Thanks, Tom.
see you next month, hopefully.
Thanks, Tom.
Jockeys Guild, I knew the answer to that. Next is Commission Report, Summary of Current Events Affecting Arizona Racing Commission. Rudy? Nothing to report. Identification of any matters to be placed on future agenda.
Jay, you want to cover that? Raise?
Yeah, raise for the commission.
Yeah.
Make notes.
That's,
Yeah,
I
exactly.
hate to say it, that's where that $1 million went.
I didn't get my cut.
Next is call to the public. I'm trying to read the right. Nathan?
Not at this time, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Okay. Joseph Kinnefeld?
That's Kleinfeld, and he is not here. He was for
Kleinfeld,
the
okay.
first item as well.
Tom, you're on here, but,
Yeah, that was-
Oh, no, I just,
That was,
okay.
I didn't realize the program was on the slide.
Okay.
Dave, Mike.
Dave, Mike, if you want anything to add?
We're good.
Okay. The next Racing Commission meeting will be in this room on June 8, 2017, 10 o'clock.
I've got one question. There's obviously a void on the commission. Where are we on that? Can anybody give us an update of?
I have
Been a
heard,
while.
I have heard nothing on a replacement. Session is over, so any type of decision would have to be made. Next session has to be Senate approved, so more than likely you four are it for a while.
Okay.
Just another piece of information. I spoke with Mara Malmstrom. She's with the governor's office, and let her know that the commission was short one position, and they are aware. They're looking into it. One of the concerns that I shared with her was that what if there's a tie in any kind of matter? Who's going to be the tiebreaker? So I let her know that it was important that we fill the position.
Yeah, I was under the impression, and I know he continues to serve until he's reappointed, but Rory hadn't actually been reappointed yet, as far as I know.
No, and he does continue to serve until reappointed. The difference with Commissioner Feldmeyer was that he resigned, so
Right,
that
so
he
somebody
cut his tie and
replaced him.
stepped out, yes.
Rudy, can the governor appoint somebody pending
Yes.
Senate approval?
Absolutely
Oh, good, okay. Maybe it'll happen over the summer then.
possible. Now that the budget's done, we have some time.
Yeah, there you go. All right, as I said, the next Racing Commission meeting is on Thursday, June 8th at 10 a.m. in this conference room. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, aye.
Meeting adjourned at 10:53 a.m. 3 a.m. 3 a.m. 3 a.m. 3 a.m. 3 a.m.